the Lord. God be praised.
Good morning, Ecclesiastical Mook.
It's funny every time, and I don't know why. Good morning, children.
Of course it's a good idea.
We've been talking a lot of God this morning.
Yes, that's why I saved a whole God stack for you. That's why I asked for an especially Jesus-y jingle for you.
Well, let's dive into it. Before we do, let me just say again what a great show we had in Madison last week. And let me also say, Stephanie, there's easier ways for you to tell Hillary Clinton you don't like her shoes.
You see what you did there. I knew it than me. John Fugelsang, what should we start with here? Take out the organ, please. Won't
Right
you?
away.
Well, I'm sure you heard Mike Huckabee say, I'm not a hater. I just follow the Bible. He said, insisting his opposition to same-sex marriage is based on the Bible.
Right.
He said in this world...
It's faith-based hate.
Right. He said, in this world today, we stand alone in our culture, alienated in many cases, because we have a view of marriage that calls back to the traditions that go all the way back to the Garden of Eden. Let's start with what now? And then he claimed that he said people who claim that Jesus had no teaching about marriage were wrong, Huckabee said, citing Matthew 19:5. The verse reads,
right.
A man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh.
Mike Huckabee conveniently leaves out what that entire chapter is about. That's Jesus being a feminist, not Jesus being anti-gay. Jesus actually calls out Moses for being mean to women. The Pharisees show up in Judea and they try to trick him. And they say, hey, man, is it okay for a husband to just kick his wife out whenever he wants? And Jesus says, no, it's not. And they say, well, then what do you say about the law? Because Moses in the Old Testament said a man can kick his wife out whenever he feels like it, which was the ancient divorce law. It's the gospel according to Ike Turner. And Jesus finally says, I don't care what the law was. Moses had that law because your hearts were hardened. You don't see a lot of Moses hecklers in the Bible, I got to say. And then he says, if you kick your wife out for any other reason other than adultery, you've turned her into an adulteress and you're an adulterer as well. So it's really Jesus standing up for women against mean, women-hating divorce laws that allowed a husband to kick the wife to the curb if he no longer delighted in her. It's got everything to do with straight divorce, nothing about gay marriage. So if Mike Huckabee is going to be relying on that to justify his bigotry and discrimination, he better start opposing every heterosexual divorce, because that's what the damn chapter's about.
Thank you,
Here
John
end of the
Fugelsang.
lesson.
Thank you. I was going to say...
Jesus said to Mike Huckabee, ho, sit down.
Right. But the other thing is, like, even just as a layperson, like me, John Fugelsang, just that verse from Matthew, you go, okay, just because you're talking about one heterosexual man in a marriage, that's not, you know what I'm saying? Just on its face, you'd go, okay, so that's one choice because Jesus didn't say anything about another choice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Look, in Romans, Paul lays it out. There's a part in Romans that the bigots use to say that the Bible's against gay people, but in Romans, Paul really spells it out when he says to them, if you judge anyone, you're going to be judged. That's the big sin. So, it's pretty simple. And again, there's so many homophobes out there who just need some hot sex with a man to get it out of their system.
Don't you love
right.
whenever someone says, I'm not homophobic?
But
whatever they say right after that is definitely going to be. But he said, you got to understand, for me, it's not about the right or wrong side of history. It's about the right side of the Bible. Unless God rewrites it, edits it, sends it down with his signature on it, it's not my book to change.
But Mike Huckabee doesn't follow the book of Leviticus, which says no man shall lie with another man as with a woman. And by the way, a lot of that's about married guys on the down low. See Craigslist. That still goes on to this day. But Mike Huckabee doesn't follow the laws of Leviticus. He cuts his hair at the temples. He doesn't stone disobedient children to death. If that was the case, he'd have to kill his own kid for killing the family dog. Huckabee's hypocrisy is so steep here, and I'm so glad that your show is out there and that progressive media is out there, because mainstream media will never bring on someone to refute Mike Huckabee. They'll just say, well, that's the Christian point of view. Now let's go to the atheist. And the fact is, it's not the Christian point of view. Jesus never said a damn thing about gay people, and they existed in his time. And again, Romans 2:1, therefore you have no excuse when you judge others, for in passing judgment on another you condemn yourself, because you, the judge, are doing the very same things. So Mike Huckabee's allowed to despise gay people. He's in America and has that freedom. He's not allowed to say it's because he's Christian.
Yeah.
It seems like the most hardcore Christians like Mike Huckabee haven't really read the New Testament. They're just so in love with
with the Old Testament.
You're right, Jim. A lot of them have a Bible that just pretty much, goes straight from the Golden Calf to the Left Behind books with a little bit of Revelations duct taped to the back.
I was saying, by the way, with today's right-wingers, even if God did rewrite it and sign it, there would be, since there's birthers, there would be like, that's not God's signature. they would disbelieve, right?
Exactly.